Over the last 5 games, we've seen Ian Russell put the Earthquakes through a series of experiments, both in formations and personnel. Some of those experiments have worked out, while others have come up short, with the overall results not having been much better than how the team was performing before Ian Russell took over. Now that we've seen the trends and experiments, we, the Quakesaholics, want to talk about things we've liked, those we haven't, and what we still want to see during this period of experimentation. So, first topic for today is what are our overall thoughts on how the Quakes have developed or regressed while under Ian Russell?
I think the first thing that stands out to me when I think about how the Earthquakes have looked under Ian Russell or under Lucci is the defense. The defense definitely looks a lot more sound. I noticed that in the game against Chicago. It felt very different as to a Lucci style game. Honestly, almost opposing in a lot of ways. I feel like Lucci's style is very much dependent on a lot of intensity and taking risk. And I think that in an Ian Russell system, at least from what I've seen thus far, it seems like it's a lot more slow, but with more defense. I remember the game against Chicago, the first half felt pretty back and forth. Not much happened, but after we scored that goal, we've felt many times in this season alone how the amount of times that the Earthquakes will capitulate at the end or will concede something. But honestly, I felt like a lot of the players that came on were pretty sound. And even in the games after that, I feel like the defense has felt a lot more rigid. My biggest concern, however, is the opposite side of the field in scoring goals. I remember I was looking at the stats and Earthquakes have only scored eh,
2 goals in the
we
last
have
five
only
games.
yeah, and one of them was an own goal. So not very good
Yes.
on the offensive side of the game.
Yeah, and to your point about the whole collapsing at the end, I don't remember when I read the stat. I think it was during the St. Louis game. We've led in 10 of 21 matches, and we've given up 20 points from winning positions this season, which had we gotten
Wow.
those at the time when I read that, we would have been fifth in the West and potentially higher if you also take into account the point stat that would have taken away from other teams in the West. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just I mean, we even saw it in the Chicago. Like you look at the momentum graph at the end, they did grow into the game, but luckily we were able to hold on to that lead.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was impressed with the defense, but yeah, I think I could see that working under an Ian Russell system so far, us scoring and then just kind of like sitting back and absorbing pressure. I think that we can do that, especially when you compare to how the team looked under Lucci. I'm just concerned about where the goals are going to come from. Like you mentioned, we only have 2 goals and one of them was an own goal. So yeah, that's my biggest concern right now is where the goals are gonna come from.
And I think a lot of people have that concern, and we can get into that in a bit. Overall, my thoughts. We talked about this when Mucci left that we both wanted things to change, and even if it was radical, it'd be good because now is a time to experiment. We're not really playing for anything other than trying to figure out something that works. So in that sense, Ian Russell experimentation has been good. I don't know if, as an overall statement, I can say that we've improved. I'm saying
Yeah.
that mostly based on the results. I'm not counting too much the Galaxy game because I think you only had like 2 or 3 days as manager. So it's like, what are you going to do in that? Like less than 100 hours, you know? So really, it's
Yeah.
these 5 games that we're evaluating all this on. And we only played well in one of them in the sense of like actually getting a result. And that one was a game where we played five in the back. Five in the back has looked good. It has solidified the defense, but I don't think we won the Chicago game because of the formation. I actually think we just won because Chicago couldn't put away chances. They had a lot of chances that went wide. They had a lot of good transition moments. And not that we got lucky, but had we played that game against a different opponent, the result would have been similar to the other ones because when we play against teams that can score, we get punished. I don't think five in the back is a bad direction, though. I'm just not totally convinced. I think that when we do concede goals, it's a lot of individual player mistakes or we get caught in transition. And I don't think the formation change directly addresses that. It definitely helps. I think for some players like Daniel Munie, playing five in the back has definitely been better for them. But overall, the trend is the same. We're still losing games, and I was hoping for more out of the five in the back. But like we've just been talking about, if we can't score goals, we're not going to win games. And that's kind of what it comes down to at this
Yeah.
point.
To give Ian Russell a little bit of grace, I mean, for one, like you said, you can't count the LA Galaxy game, but I still think that the reason why you can't put too much weight on the Galaxy result is those reasons are still problems right now. Is the fact that, recently the Earthquakes have had a lot of games back to back, and I would imagine he hasn't had too much time to really implement any ideas. And there obviously have been some injuries, right? Like Bruno Wilson, he's been out. Victor Costa got out, and Benji playing at right back, as good as he's done, is not ideal per se. If you have a if a capo is fit, so I do think that he does deserve some grace. But like you said, yeah, overall, I feel like there hasn't been much of an improvement, and like there's a part of me that kind of thinks like, what's the point in playing like this defensive style if we can't score? And then like the second we concede, it's just kind of like a lost hope. The
Yeah,
results don't feel that much better.
losing is losing,
Um,
right? And it- it's like
yeah,
we've taken
ex-
one step forward, but taken two steps back because the step forward is we're not getting blown out, but the step back is we're not scoring, and now the games are boring to watch. I mean, I'd rather lose 4-3 than 1-0 because at least we got to celebrate three times, you know?
yeah, and I think from what I've seen on social media, there are many people that share your sentiment. I think that it can work personally. Like I do think that this system, if implemented, it's difficult, right? Because of the situation that Ian Russell is going into with the given the context of the season up until this point, it makes sense that a lot of the mentality just isn't there. And I think you have seen that before, or you've seen that in these past few games where we've conceded, and it just doesn't. It feels like we could play for another 2 hours and would not score a goal. And I do
Yeah.
think that a big part of that is the mental side of it as well. But I think personally, I want to give it some more time. Maybe once a few players come back, it will be a more proper evaluation. But I would agree that in terms of the results, it's not good enough. And the burden of proof lies on Ian Russell to prove that he is worthy of this position. And if they want to, because I know that Ian Russell was a contender to have the managerial role even before Lucci was um, was confirmed to be the next manager. So I think that if he has aspirations to be the head coach, the burden is on him to prove why he needs to,
Yeah,
or why he
agreed. I
should
think,
be.
yeah, I have higher standards because this isn't like an Alex Cavallo situation. This is someone who was actually a candidate. The other thing to mention too is that I agree with you that the five in the back is a good system defensively compared to what Lucci was showing at the tail end of his
Yeah.
time as manager. But I think the biggest question right now is where are the goals going to be coming from? What does our attack look like? We have two goals in five games. One of them is an own goal. The other one is a transition goal. The way we played against Minnesota specifically made me feel like there's no plan in terms of how we're expected to score goals. I felt like all of our attacks were to provoke a corner, and then once we have that corner, send it to the first post and hope that someone can head it in or kick it in or get some kind of finish. And they didn't feel effective. The only corner that actually felt effective, I think it was in the 30th ish minute mark, was a corner that went wide and out to Gresso, and then he kind of got like I think he touched it first and then took a shot from distance. That was like the only element of surprise that we had, and that was our best chance. Apart from
Mhm.
that, it's like what what is the idea?
I mean, you can't gloss over the chance that Ebobisse had, though. They were like glaringly open
Yeah,
chances, and
that's true.
I know he's had a rough season, and but I think that. that 9 position, and honestly, just finishing in general throughout the season has been a problem. I mean, even when Lucci was still in charge, I feel like I can remember on multiple occasions in the post-game interview, him just talking about XG, him just talking about creating chances and how he likes what he sees in terms of the chances that have been made for the players. And that's true, you know, like of course, as a manager, I can see why you'd feel better about a game in terms of the of a prognosis for the season. You'd feel better about a game that's full of a lot of chances, but you just can't finish them, than you would be about a game where you knock a 1-0 off the first chance of the game, but concede 10 other chances. I understand that, but at the same time, it's like if the finishing itself becomes a theme throughout the season and it becomes a problem, then that's that's difficult to solve. But I do think that overall against Minnesota, I felt like in the first half they did play better in terms of chance creation. I feel like there were some chances where they had it's the two Ebobisse ones are the most glaring ones.
Yeah.
And
But then
yeah,
then my critique becomes if the goals are supposed to come from the 9 and we're still going with the very heavy, run it down the flanks and then whip it in and hope to get a finish, and those finishes aren't coming, why are we playing the same 9 for all of these games? I'm pretty sure it has been Ebobisse in all of these 5 games that we're talking about. And so,
yeah.
except well, not St. Louis. St. Louis was Judd, but like the last 4 games, it's been Ebobisse, and there have been a lot of squandered opportunities. And this isn't to say that Judd doesn't have misses. He does miss as well, but
Definitely has some
eh,
misses, yeah. It's
it's more
difficult,
misses.
and because I
I think
remember the game against what was it? I think it was the game against Kansas at the
yep,
very end where the
yep,
ball falls to
mhm.
Judd. In the Galaxy game, Judd had a good chance on the transition that was actually kinda similar to the chance that Ebobisse had in this game versus Minnesota. Crossed in, and then he just scuffs it wide. Yeah, it's difficult, and I know that we just recalled Buddha from his loan, and maybe now that Buddha's back, he will get some chances there. I'm not sure if he prefers to play on the left, but I know under Lucci there were a few times where he would play where we're chasing a goal and he would put Buddha up top and put him next to a Ebobisse sometimes. And honestly, that's another thing too. Like you have to, or maybe even putting Pellegrino down the middle, or just putting more firepower up top. Like yeah, like you said, yes, it is true that if we're seeing this recurring issue with the finishing, then Ian Russell has to kind of adapt to that issue and just kind of allocate the players toward those problems that are lacking.
I think this is a good transition to the second thing I want to talk about, which is now we have the overall thoughts. What are the thoughts on the individual player selections within these lineups? And we can just continue with the conversation about the 9, and I'll let you start off with that if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I was just alluding to, I definitely think that Ian Russell has a bit of an excuse with being forced to play, being somewhat forced to play Benji at right back. But if not for that, I would try Pellegrino down the middle and then put Benji on the left, or maybe even putting Benji on the left.
Just to clarify, I heard you say Benji on the left twice. Do you mean Pellegrino at the 9, Benji on the left, or Benji in the middle?
Sorry, yeah. So yeah,
Okay, I agree.
basically, my point is these permutations of, I mean, he's put it too much faith in Ebobisse, I think, and but to be fair, the counter argument might be like, okay, well, we have seen Judd on maybe not enough, but we have seen him on a few occasions, like you say, the game against St. Louis, which was honestly one of the
It was
worst,
bad. It was so bad.
performances overall that I've seen this season, which says a lot given the season we've had. And but I think that this so I get the argument that Judd hasn't done any better, but I still think that Ebobisse is definitely not working. And who knows? Maybe I remember there was a time when earlier in the season when Judd started against the Sounders and Ebobisse came on, basically immediately scored and kind of like had that like stern celebration. And maybe if it's like a
Hmm.
kick in the ass, then then so be it. You know, like I think that there just needs to be more permutations, and that position is up for grabs because it's like it's almost like we're playing without a nine. You know, like it is basically up for grabs, and I think that's has to be the only way to prove that it is up for grabs is to try things out.
Ebobisse still has more goals on the season than Judd, I'm pretty sure. Maybe
Yeah,
that is because of more playing time, so that's something we should expect. It does
definitely.
feel like whoever comes in as the sub somehow ends up playing better than the one who started.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does.
it's hard, and I think at this point, I see both sides of having critiques of both of them in terms of finishing. I think the one edge that I will give Judd, at least on current form, is that if we are going to be playing this transition counterattack style of play, I think that Judd does more in advancing the ball up the field when he gets it. I think Ebobisse is a lot better at holding the ball, but to actually turn and advance the ball, I put my money on Judd. And it feels like that's how we're playing. If we're going to be playing so defensively, I would assume that the goals have to come from quick transitions. Otherwise, I'm completely lost as to what the ideas are.
I would agree. I think that I agree with you from what we've seen. Even then, like he can turn, run with the ball, and I do think his decision making is a little bit questionable at times. But overall, I think that he can run into space, and if there is a Pellegrino or an Espinoza along one of the flanks making a run, he more often than not will make that pass. And he waits the through balls fairly well from what I've seen. And I've been impressed with his technique, being able to turn and then immediately just like sending a through ball. I have been
Yeah.
impressed by that.
I mean,
And
that's how we got the goal for Kansas City, right? The counterattack that then became an own goal, the
yeah,
scan.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely think that there has to be more experimentation. And honestly, like there's a lot that you could do. Like I mean, you could even just forego the 9 and just play, like, I don't know, Pellegrino and Espinoza up top and then have, like, Hernan slightly below them, and then just rely on, like, runs from Espinoza and Pellegrino and have them be a bit more advanced and have Espinoza be more the focal point for goals as opposed to the focal point for, passing. I mean, if you have Hernan right below them, I feel like Hernan has the vision and the technique to find those passes and to execute those passes in behind. So there's a lot of permutations that you can do. Another thing that I found interesting about the player selection was the names he's gone to off the bench. I feel like he has been a lot more Ian Russell, that is, has been a lot more has had a lot more faith in players who maybe haven't had that many minutes this season. Like, I mean, we saw Will Richmond against Houston last week. I thought that was pretty surprising. That's probably his first MLS minutes since under Matias Almeida, potentially.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah, it has been a while. And I feel like that's okay, in those kinds of in those contexts where it's just, like 20 minutes here and there. Like even if they're not the most, technically sound players, I do think that sometimes like just getting those legs can make the difference for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about the player selection so far?
I would definitely favor Judd over Jabo, as we've been talking about. The the one player, not just under Ian Russell, but to give credit to is Daniel Munie. I think he's been massively improving with the minutes that he's been getting. I think the five in the back has definitely helped him out a lot. I think we saw it against Cincinnati and New York City that he seems to naturally want to push up the field a lot, and he seems to want to go for the challenges early. And maybe that's his playing style. Maybe that's just the nervousness of playing professionally. I don't know, but
Mhm.
with five in the back, it seems that there's more room for those kinds of decisions of going for it, and if it doesn't work out, then there's someone behind you that can help clean up. And I think Beeson and Rodriguez have both been very good at that. Well, I don't know about very good because we're still losing games, but it's been a lot better than what we saw under Lucci.
Yes,
Uh,
big
yeah.
improvement for sure. That's
Uh,
another thing too, like, in terms of, the resources at Ian Russell's disposal. I mean, Munie was already the second choice center back, second choice center back, I would say, and he now is injured. Depth is being very much tested. But I
mhm,
think that from what I've seen though, under Ian Russell, I would agree with you. Daniel Mooney has been great. He's fast too. In terms of a center back who doesn't have much experience, you'd probably want a center back who's a little bit too quick to jump into a tackle than one that's maybe a bit more kind of nervy and sort of shies away from a tackle. I think that it's better to have one that's a bit more risky than too of risk averse, especially
yeah.
for a young player.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on the center backs. The full backs, it's kind of hard to evaluate with so many injuries. I think Benji has looked really, really good. I don't know if that'll be his permanent position. I think we both agree that we'd rather see him up top. I
Yeah.
think the idea of Pellegrino at the 9 and Benji on the left wing, or vice versa, I think that'd be an interesting experiment. And like we said, this is the time for experimentation. The one position I don't feel like there's much room for experimentation is the goalkeeper position, and we keep seeing Jacob Jackson make more appearances.
Right.
I personally, I think Yarbrough is the choice, at least until Danielle or JT get fit.
In the
Um,
meantime,
yeah, in the meantime, I think I'd go with Yarbrough just because it's more experience and games that we've gotten points out of. Yarbrough has been the keeper, and it's not just him directly responsible for that. But then the other side of the coin is Jacob Jackson. All the games that he's played in, we've lost, and some of those have been. I mean, one of them
correct.
was an Open Cup disaster in the extra time. We've had blowouts. I think he played. Did he play against New York City or Cincinnati? I remember he played against one of
He
them.
played against LAFC, I remember, which was obviously
Oh, okay. That was the disaster class. Okay. I knew it was one of those three.
and
Um,
against Portland, obviously, he had the
yes,
individual
the
error.
blunder. the
Yeah,
the Daniel Vega reincarnation. I miss those times.
yeah. No, I would agree
So,
with you. I will say, I did hear in the broadcasting that Yarbrough had a mild rib injury, something like that, in the
mm,
last game that Jackson played in.
for
Um,
Houston,
I think it was against Houston, yes. If that was the game, yeah, I remember hearing in the broadcast after the fact that he did have an injury to, like, kinda like a knock type thing, like, just
yeah,
out one game.
I
Um,
see.
but no, you're
If
right.
that's the case,
Yeah, if that's the case, then it's fine, but I definitely think, like, if there's any doubt, there shouldn't really be any doubt that Yarbrough is the number 1 keeper for the moment. He is the starting keeper at this current moment.
in terms of the midfield,
The midfield's been it's interesting.
it's
I
been
feel like there
consistent.
isn't Yeah, but I don't really think there's, like, a right answer at the moment. I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's just me, but ever since Ian Russell's come in, I feel like there isn't really a I guess it's like Gresso, Yule, and then maybe
Or
Nico
none
is your ideal starting
for
midfield
Nico.
if everyone is available. If everyone is
Where do you put
available.
it or none? Where's there none?
Sorry. Yeah, you're right, you're right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I thought
Yes.
this was gonna go a completely different direction. I thought if I start arguing, I was ready for it.
Can you imagine, bro? Yeah, honestly or none. Yeah, no. No. No, but yeah, I think that okay, yeah, Hernan, Yule, Gresso is like the default answer, but
Hmm.
don't think like I think Hernan is a must, obviously. But other than that, I think that like it kind of depends what you want. out of the midfield, and there's not much like marginal gain or loss from changing or mixing up the other individuals.
I slightly disagree. I think Gressel has to play.
I don't know. I'm just not convinced by him. He was really good against Chicago. I don't know what it
Mhm.
was. Like I think
Yeah,
he played in San Jose and he thought that he was still in the Ecuador jersey maybe. I don't know what happened. But
it's because he did the jersey swap with Messi, and it just like Lamine Yamal
yeah,
got baptized or something like that. But it was like a 90-minute duration.
yeah, honestly it could be that. Yeah, like he got I don't know, like Messi's cologne just like the pheromones or something just like, made him go I don't know, like turn him into a savage for that day. But
Hmm.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, honestly, like I feel like Gresso kind of had that like honeymoon. I'm back in the Bay, and then it's
Then we
kind of
played
he's
Kansas
just
City.
yeah, and then he just kind of became what we've seen up until this point. But you're right. I think like it's like unfortunate, but I do think like I do think that Gresso should be in would probably should be a starter. I do think though that also has a lot to do with Ian Russell's system of just putting a lot of emphasis on defensive protection. I think if you're going to have a bit more defensive protection and solidity, you need that midfield protection.
The reason I say that Gressel should play and has to play, it's related to my thoughts on the four in the back versus the five in the back. And where I'm at right now is that I don't think that either one of those two really has that much of a difference on the team. I think it comes down to, are we going to eliminate individual player mistakes and are we not going to fall apart on a counter off of a corner or any kind of counter really? And half of that equation is if Gressel plays well, we have a really, really good chance of winning the game. And if Gressel ghosts, we are most likely going to lose that game. And I think right now, Gressel's performance within a game is the biggest variable in terms of are we going to win or not. I think everyone else, I, I, I'm coming at it from the perspective that like someone like Espinosa, we know exactly what we're gonna get for those 90 minutes, and we're gonna get that. Someone like I don't know, Rodriguez, really any of the center backs, we know what we're going to get out of those players. We know what we're going to get out of Hernan. I think Gresso is the biggest wild card, but when he does play well, it really helps the team. And I think that a big reason why we got 3 points out of the Chicago game is because Gresso played probably his best game for us this season. I was looking at some of the stats and just some of the more noteworthy ones. He had 19 out of 20 passes completed, won 100% of his tackles, had 5 recoveries, 3 interceptions. He was winning duels all over the field. I would really love to see his heat map because I felt like he was running all over the place. And he was even getting engaged with our attacks as well. And I think he had 1 or 2 shots. And when I compare that to something like Minnesota yesterday, it felt like, well, Minnesota maybe not the best example, but I feel like I don't remember if it was Houston or Kansas City. It was one of these two games where Gressel felt a lot more passive in his play style. Like there wasn't as much urgency, and it just felt like that kind of spread to the players that were around him. I remember I'm pretty sure it was against the Houston game where Yarbrough gets the ball, and we're getting ready to counter, and then Gressel is still behind the defense, walking, and then the defense is slowly walking, and so we're not really pushing up the field in a moment where we're losing and maybe it wasn't when we were losing. I don't remember the exact minute, but I'm pretty sure it was in the Houston game where I was just really disappointed with that lack of urgency. And I don't know, there's just something about when Gressel plays well that gives me a lot of confidence.
I agree, but like you said, it's unfortunate because the six, I think, is one of those positions where you need to know what you're getting out of that position, and the fact that you don't with Grisso is a major issue. Like
So
you
what's the
said,
alternative? You want to play
exactly.
Nico and Yule again, and then they try to share defensive responsibilities, and then neither one of
Yeah,
them perform as well because they expect the other player to cover for them, and then we concede a bunch of goals. Like, come on, there's
no,
no other option. It's either
I
Gressel
agree.
or Morales, and for
Yeah,
whatever reason, Morales just isn't getting minutes.
I do think that Grisso needs to start. It's just unfortunate because if we could see the Grisso that showed up against Chicago, we would be, I don't know, competing for playoffs or something. Not where we are now, but for whatever reason we can't, and it's unfortunate. But if Gresso has a good game, Quakes will have a good game, and if he doesn't, then it makes it a lot harder for Quakes to perform.
And also, if Gressel plays well, then we don't need five in the back because Gressel covers.
Yeah, that's also probably true. Yeah, overall, I don't know. I think that it's so difficult to say how much of it is mental, you know. It must be incredibly stressful. And these games are decided in seconds a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Like the margins are super, super small. So the differences in talent aren't massive. Obviously, like when you average out like all 22 players on the pitch, 11 versus 11. So
Hmm.
I do think that the psychological component and some of the maybe the poor associations with whatever it may be, that those feelings of being there before when you concede or kind of like things just, like the freak own goal that Beeson has, like that's just something where, like it's almost, given the context of the season, I think as a fan, it's very easy to just look at that and just like kind of like nod your head and be like, how do you let that happen, or like demand better. And yeah, like of course the fans and the team and everyone like wants better and no one wants to see that happen, but I could also understand how like that just is so flattening in terms of like your mood, and it's difficult to have to, and I bet it's exhausting, like feeling like you have to pick yourself up time and time, like all the goals they've conceded late and everything. Like I think mentally too, like a lot of them are just exhausted, and that also makes it difficult to like fully evaluate some of the more recent performances. Maybe like Ebobisse, right? Like that's definitely a
Hmm.
position where if you're a nine, like the moments you have in a game, you're not a midfielder where you're like constantly, it feels like you're playing like the full 90. You're constantly involved. You're a nine, and you're kind of like out on the island like that, and you're not fully on it. Like in those moments where you need to perform, it's gonna be difficult,
Yeah.
to be able to call upon those talents that you have. Maybe with Leagues Cup and and
Transfer
uh
window.
yeah, the transfer window is opening up. Also, I'm not gonna say it's impossible for Earthquakes to make it to the next round of Leagues Cup, but I think that I wouldn't bet on it, and I bet that it would be from the interview that I saw being Russell, it looks like he's trying to approach Leagues Cup as kind of that fresh start that maybe some of the players need. Whether that's really feasible to actually do and actually execute that kind of like, okay, I'm gonna look at this through fresh eyes, whether that's actually possible for the players at this point is difficult to say. But regardless, I do think that Leagues Cup and any break after Leagues Cup is going to present itself as an opportunity for Ian Russell to have more time with the team and to hopefully have more of a materialized kind of strategy for the remainder of the season. And I think post Leagues Cup break, I think that that is enough time to get a gauge on what Ian Russell is trying to do and to evaluate him and his team properly.
You want a good Ian Russell and Chivas stuff?
What?
So Ian Russell was our interim coach in 2014. He only coached two games. He tied the first one 0-0 against Vancouver, and the last match day of that season, we played Chivas USA, and we lost 1-0. You could say that this is not his first time playing against Chivas. It's a stretch, but you could technically say something along those lines.
So what you're saying is Ian Russell's gonna have a chip on his shoulder?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, something to prove.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure Chivas USA had Spoon in that season, and then they beat us in the last match day. So maybe right now, us being in Spoon is like the key to beating Chivas.
Interesting. Maybe.
Tinfoil
Aren't aren't
positivity
we
over here.
aren't we undefeated at Levi's? I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Weren't we undefeated at
Yes,
Levi's?
Yeah, we are. We've
I feel like
beaten
Levi is like
Sounders.
yeah, I feel like at Levi's, like, I don't know, like, magic happens there. I don't think I've ever gone to a Levi's game and been, like, completely, utterly disappointed with the result.
Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure we
think
won
that's
all the games. And yeah, here it is. October 26th, 2014, Chivas USA just 1-0. The
wow.
lineups. Oh, they don't even have like the formation. John
They didn't
Bush
have
and
Kate Cowell,
goalie.
though,
They
either.
didn't have Kikau. Okay.
Yeah, you're excited to see Kate Cowell back?
Wando. Am I excited to see Kikau? Honestly, not really. I I was never attached like most Quakes fans. I
I
think
feel like he's
I think
excited
it's
to play us, which is not good.
he's excited to play us, yes, and I could
He
very
has
easily see him. He could have better stats in this game against us than he did in the entire 2023 season for the Quakes. Pretty sure he had like 1 goal and like 2 assists or something like that.
that's insane, he literally could.
And he's on form
Honestly,
too.
yeah, and no, I think he has, like, 3 goals in his last 3 games.
That's horrible for us.
Which, I don't know who taught him how to finish. I don't know where that
He
came
has
from.
he
Maybe
has
he's still in
more
contact
goals.
with one.
He has more goals in the past 3 games than we do in the past 5 games.
Okay, but he's gonna play against up against Benji.
That's true. They can finally have the race. I remember there was like some drama in like one of the press conferences about who was faster.
I think Benji could pocket him. I think Cal's gonna, like, mess up, and then he's gonna get in his head and, like, try to do too much, and then Benji's just gonna pocket him.
I hope
I
so.
think it could
I'm,
happen.
I'll put it right now. 9% of voters think that we can beat Chivas.
That's another thing too, is this gonna be an away game for us. That's a problem. We've never played away at Levi's before, so maybe that
Oh,
changes things.
okay. So if we're home at Levi's, then it's a guaranteed win, is what you're telling
Yeah,
us.
but away, it's, like,
It's
uncharted.
up in the air.
Or yeah.
It's like the Levi's Magic versus the away performances, the form
Yeah.
on the road. We beat
Yeah.
Colorado though. This could be our second road win of the season.
Yeah,
We
maybe.
got we got 2 away wins last season, so maybe that's the cap. We get 2 per season, and we've been saving the away win for this game.
Maybe they'll, like, do you know, we played Chivas first and then LA Galaxy, right?
Correct.
So, when does Chivas play LA Galaxy?
Probably the Saturday after we play them. Yeah, August 3rd. So like LA doesn't play this coming Saturday. They play us on I think Wednesday and then the following Saturday.
I see. So that's the last game of our group, is the game of Chivas versus LA Galaxy.
Galaxy. Yes.
Yeah, that's
What are you
tough.
speculating on?
I was hoping that it was the exact opposite of schedule.
Oh, like we finish.
Like, they already know the result they need when they end up playing us.
I see. So then they try to just like play
Or
for the draw. Or
yeah,
they're scared of
or,
us.
like yeah, or they just, like, rest them or something, I don't know.
If they rest, they might not play Cade.
That
They're
would
not gonna
be
rest that. It's first game.
yeah. No, there's no way they're gonna rest. All I know is I think that Cal's gonna get pocketed. That's, like, the only thing that I feel confident about. Like, I don't know what that means about the result, I don't know what that means about, like, what happens with LA Galaxy, we haven't even talked about that game, but I just think Cal's gonna get pocketed.
I hope
So that'll
so.
be
I feel like it's good to end this video on that positivity. Let's not even go into that LA game.
yeah. That's, like, the only prediction I can give that I feel like, for some reason, convinced about. There's just
Yeah.
too much on the
Well,
line.
we'll see what happens. It's not too far away now. So if you're going to the game, we'll probably see you there. I'm expecting us to be a major minority at this game.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah,
And I don't
I think
blame Quakes fans. Based on how games go at PayPal against the IMX teams, I don't blame Quakes fans for not wanting to go to these games.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Chivas fans are gonna be loud, that's for sure. They're prideful, if anything.
That's not the adjective I was thinking of, but we'll keep using that one. All
Alright,
right. Well,
well,
that's all we had. That's all we have for this one. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. We will come back after Leagues Cup to talk about how we performed in there, and then a look ahead at the rest of the transfer window, which opened up last week. Yeah, so we'll catch you then.
Thank you guys. See you soon.